Rank them. Most currently dangerous cabinet officials. Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth, RFK Jr. Allison, I'll let you lead off.
Thank you, Dave. Pete Hegseth, obviously, anybody who's near our
As one?
he's the most dangerous, yes.
Okay.
He has his fingers on the buttons of our nuclear arsenal. And he's, at the moment, RFK isn't killing anyone, I don't think. Anyway, yeah, Pete Hegseth. And then I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess Kristi Noem, because of what's going on with immigration and how brutal that's being conducted. And then I guess RFK, but I don't really know exactly what he's doing other than issuing new kind of thought papers on the website and changing the CDC website. So I don't exactly know how he's affecting our health yet.
I think Hegseth is the most dangerous. Noem is second, but RFK could shoot to the top of this chart based on what he enacts on these thought papers. So like he's playing with a stick of dynamite that may be defused, but it could blow up in ways that will lead to pandemics and breaks out of measles and all this stuff that we know can happen and may very well happen if he's not held in check.
Hi, everybody. Welcome into the Sanity Podcast. I'm here with Dave Briggs, of course, and our special guest, Colby Hall. Please subscribe to our Sanity channel and like this podcast. And you're going to want to like this podcast because I'm about to show Dave and Colby how they're wrong about a story that is sweeping through at least the media landscape. This very tawdry tale that involves Ryan Lizza and Olivia Nuzzi, these two very high-profile political reporters. But Colby, we're psyched to have you on with us here because you wrote a great piece on Mediaite about this very salacious story. So can you tell us your angle on this love triangle involving RFK Jr.?
So a little bit of setup. Olivia Nuzzi was caught up in an emotional affair, maybe more, with one of her subjects, RFK Jr., while she was engaged to Ryan Lizza. That broke in September of last year. They broke up and she was fired from New York Mag, and she sort of dipped and then returned about 2 weeks ago with this splashy sort of New York Times profile, like glamour black and white shots, Lana Del Rey cosplay in Malibu. Nowhere was there any contrition. It was all like, hey, I'm the subject. I am promoting a new book, which comes out today, December 2nd, American Canto. And Ryan Lizza has created a Substack called telos.news and put out a serialized sort of accounting of his experience from his perspective of being sort of a spurned lover. And he's gotten crazy subscriptions, made a lot of money off this. The column that I wrote today, well, first of all, about last week, I wrote a column that found Olivia Nuzzi's sort of comeback really distasteful, like narcissistic and gross, because there was no sort of ownership of like serious ethical breaches. Having an artist like sort of surreptitiously record Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago, or, you know, sort of doing Oppo research.
It's illegal, by the way, in Florida. Just like to point out that one of the things that they outline is an illegal recording of Donald Trump behind closed doors.
Right. It's a two-way recording state, right? But Ryan Lizza, so I was very critical of Olivia, but I said that like she's a byproduct of what's happened in journalistic trends. Like we elevate attention people and influencers. So like, let's not be surprised by this. It's still distasteful and gross, but of course, Ryan Lizza is his fourth.
I don't know. Hold on. Dave and I have to challenge you here. I don't think that having an affair with your source is a ubiquitous practice in journalism. I just don't.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the way that she came back without any contrition and made herself sort of tried to say like, look, I'm the subject of this salacious story. Look at me. I'm going to sell books without any of that. I agree with you. It's disgusting. It's ethically, you know, it crosses a ton of ethical lines. And my first column was like, that's gross. That's distasteful. However, this is what happens when we gut journalism and reward influencers. And, you know, for 15 years, we removed guardrails. And then Olivia Nuzzi was like, had highest access. She was elite writer and fun to read because she was so voicey and funny. And she was, you know, she was in the media in circle. She was funny. She didn't take herself too seriously. but she was a terrible self-promoter, and her decision to come back without saying, "Oh yeah, I fucked up," was bad.
No, Dave.
Okay, so this whole thing just makes my fucking head hurt because Ryan Lizza, who I don't know who he is and don't care, was engaged to Olivia Nuzzi, who I don't know who that is and don't care. They were engaged. She had an affair with RFK, who I find a truly despicable human being. Now, if this has something to do with America's health, which he is
Thank you.
torpedoing, then I give a shit. But I don't know who these two people are. No one in my world knows who these two people are. I do find some of the observations about RFK from her truly freaking disturbing.
And let me stop you right there. Okay, let me stop you right there because that's what this is about. That's why we're talking about this today. I agree that it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter on some level what happened between Olivia and Ryan and RFK. What matters is that RFK Jr. is in charge of all of our healthcare, every American's healthcare and well-being. So I do think, actually,
but that has anything to do with this tawdry, stupid story.
It does. I think it does because the way he's described in this story is that he's a sadist. He is described as an apparent sadist in this. He is cool. Hold on. Let me just spell it out for everybody who hasn't read this. He is psychologically sadistic to Olivia Nuzzi, if we're to believe Ryan and Olivia. He has a pregnancy fetish where he is apparently, reportedly, having affairs with, allegedly,
that's
having affairs with many women at once. He once wanted to impregnate Olivia Nuzzi. Remember when the Republican Party cared about absentee fathers? You think this 67-year-old man is going to be a great dad of that baby? I mean, this is very Elon Musk, where now the Republican Party turns away from that kind of disgusting tawdriness. I could go on. I mean, he's apparently reportedly on ketamine. Okay. Does he have a prescription for that, or is he using it illegally and illicitly? He's a sex addict, according to Nuzzi and according to Ryan Lizza. Okay, that's fine. But I don't want an unrecovered, in other words, not in recovery addict leading the nation's healthcare and my healthcare and the mental health of and physical health of Americans. Okay. I mean, I could go on. Hold
on, is any of that, aside from the potential for ketamine, disqualifying for being the HHS secretary?
I have one. You're kind of missing the headline.
Yeah.
According to Ryan Lizza, RFK Jr. doesn't really believe the anti-vax position. That's just a way. He's using it as a wedge issue to attract. Now, this is allegedly, and this is written by Ryan Lizza in his weird revenge porn, journalistic outing of Olivia and controlling the narrative, but he has the sources that can say that. It's not some random dude saying he doesn't even believe that. He's someone who was living with a woman who was having at least an emotional affair with RFK and would know. So it raises huge questions. So I think that you're right. The RFK issue is what makes this newsy in a broad sense. I obviously cover media. I think both of these instances, Olivia Nuzzi, I think they're doing a lot of damage to journalism in the way they've done this. And you're right, most Americans don't necessarily care about these two individuals, but I think the way that Ryan Lizza has sort of created a narrative to sort of fend off and blame the woman who spurned him is gross. And I paid for the subscription. I did that, and I fear the point of that is that I fear that that's a model that we're going to see more of.
And everybody should read your Mediaite piece because I do think it was excellently written. And I do take your point that to you, because you cover media, this is about journalism and that they're violating journalistic standards for sure. But basically what Ryan Lizza is doing on Substack, which is not really a journalistic platform, is he's writing his memoir. Okay. So she's written her memoir, which is out today. He's now writing his memoir in this serialized version, as far as I can tell. Okay. So I don't think I don't treat this as an article. I think it's his memoir, but I do think that yes, the degradation of journalism is important, but we need to talk about how this is the guy. This is our Health and Human Services Secretary. That's all that really matters to every American. And it should matter a lot because he is undisciplined. He's a liar, as depicted in this way, to your point about all the vaccine stuff. I don't think that RFK believes every single thing about the militant. If you're an militant anti-vaxxer, I don't think that RFK is in your camp. But how will we know? He changes. I mean, according to this, he has no conscience. He has no conscience in this whole story about all that he did to Olivia Nuzzi. So do we trust him to have a conscience making decisions for our kids?
Are we missing the obvious story here? How is that at all different than the President of the United States, who has no regrets about hanging around with a pedophile sex trafficker for more than a decade, the numerous affairs he had, some with porn stars, the policies for which he does not give two shits about, but he knows they are popular political talking points. They are one and the same. That is why they got along so well, and that's why RFK continues to exist in this world. They sound like the very same human being. And so I guess my point is, I'm just not sure Trump supporters who would matter here care. Am I wrong?
Well, two things. There's stuff we already know about RFK that's pretty well documented. He was a heroin addict for 10 years.
I'm fine with that if you're in recovery. That doesn't bother me. I'm fine with that.
He sold cocaine while he was at Harvard, right? Like he was a drug dealer.
I'm going to overlook that.
Okay, well, wow, you're really forgiving. But I will say to your point, Dave, the Trump-Epstein connection is all over the news. It's something that people are going off. And that's, I'm going to back into the point that I think you both are trying to make, is that how the hell is RFK Jr. getting like a complete and total pass for all this bullshittery, right? Like, and I'll tell you why. Because douchebags like me are writing about Olivia Nuzzi and Ryan Lizza and like, oh, they're terrible and journalism, oh my God, pearl clutch. But the truth of the matter is, like, and you're both making from different points of view, RFK Jr. is a charlatan at best. And he's not getting the attention, the spotlight from the media that he should be getting.
Yeah, thank you, Colby, for saying that. But I agree with you. I'm not blaming you. I think the whole media is missing the point. I think the whole media is missing the point that this is about RFK Jr. And a charlatan, okay, but I do think he's a sadist. The way he's described in this way is, first of all, the sexual proclivities, which are hard to read about, are sadistic. But that's okay, I guess, behind closed doors, whatever your proclivities are, except that the recklessness and lack of discipline with doing this outside of your marriage on this scale does affect all of us if you're the Health and Human Services Secretary, because what is your judgment? Look at your horrible discipline and your lack of judgment. And I can't believe that doesn't bleed into his choices and his policies. Controlling.
I can't believe you're kink-shaming RFK Jr. Like, who doesn't like a ball gag now and again?
Oh, stop.
It's just further evidence of the collapse of journalism, which we all knew was upon us, but also the collapse of real values amongst the American people. And to further hammer home your point, Kennedy told her he wanted to bind, subdue, tame, possess, and discipline Nuzzi into total submission. This was a married man who said directly that he wanted to do those things to an engaged woman. I'm trying to figure out nothing surprises me about the American people anymore, because we have looked the other way for so damn long. I, for one, got off the Republican bus the day I heard "grab him by the pee" to Billy Bush. But most Americans stayed on that train. And so I don't know what matters to people anymore. I do know this: the American people don't care about that book, because it is somewhere around 17,000 right now, number 17,000 on Amazon. And
well,
I do like this one review real quick, and it's from The Atlantic. Helen Lewis writes, "The only person in the story with real power is RFK Jr. And he is, I cannot believe I'm typing this, maintaining a dignified silence here, Allison."
Yeah. Well, first of all, this is new. This is new information that American people, this hasn't seeped out of Substack yet to hit the American people. I would submit that they should read this. I think that it is, yes, it's tawdry, Colby, and it certainly says a lot about the way Olivia Nuzzi practiced journalism. I'm not ready to blame all journalists and all journalism for her fall from grace, okay? But I do think that the American public should read this because, again, it affects all of us. So this is new. And I do think, Dave, to your point, that if you lump in all of the people, our leaders, who have horrible judgment and horrible discipline, so it's not just RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. Pete Hegseth is in the news right now, and his horrible judgment and horrible discipline. And I do think that it's getting, I mean, Kash Patel, it goes on. And I do think that these are getting people's attention more. I do think
Do you?
Yeah.
I think it's spinning out of control. I think it's spinning out of control. I do think that you see it in the polling numbers. I hear it in conversations with my buddies in Kansas. They all say, like, and they aren't true MAGA, but they're Republicans who voted for Trump on policy. And they're like, this is just a clown show. They're over it. And by the way, when you're in your second term, you can no longer run against the deep state because you've become the establishment, right? I want to go back really quickly about this, sort of all the details that came out about the sadism, all this stuff. We know that because of what Ryan Lizza wrote. And I wonder, is it worth questioning what he's reporting? Because he's a spurned lover. He lost his fiancée, love of his life, to RFK Jr. So I think we should be just a little bit circumspect. That, like, my column today was that this kind of read like revenge porn. Like, he was like controlling the narrative and making it. And he did, this last episode came out before her book dropped, which is getting panned. And I think she miscalculated. But I think there's this whole sort of like, we should maybe question what he's doing. I know both these dudes. I kind of like them. I'd see them at parties. They were like charming and funny and remarkably relatable. But this whole episode has made me like grossed out by both of them. Like, I don't know.
You think?
I mean, it's just disgusting. The other question I have, just quick pivot, where's Cheryl Hines in all of this? The Curb Your Enthusiasm actress who's married to RFK Jr. and just is kind of like, he's a Kennedy. What are you going to do? Like, it doesn't, I don't know if she's showing the agency or ownership of this sort of fucked up relationship that I'd like to see. But you know what? I'm not walking in her shoes. So judge not, lest ye be judged.
Yeah, well, a couple things I want to say about that, which is that part of me, I think it's valuable to talk about this, as I said, because RFK Jr. affects all of our lives. Okay.
Right.
However, I do worry about, it seems to me, based upon, if we believe Ryan Lizza, and I think that's a great cautionary note that you sounded about can we believe him? He's the sperm lover. If we believe him, it does sound to me like Olivia Nuzzi is not mentally well. It sounds like she is mentally unstable. It sounds like I don't know what the personality disorder is, a narcissistic disorder, perhaps, something. And I do truly, this is true, genuinely worry people who are unstable and publicly humiliated at the same time. I think that's a really dangerous recipe. So I actually don't want to really make light of this. I worried when I read this fourth installment of like, I hope that Olivia Nuzzi has friends and family and support and loving people around her because, I don't want to be too extreme, but there is research, and we all know this from high school kids who get humiliated. There is research that, like, if you have any suicidal ideation whatsoever, a public humiliation can tip you over. And so I just want to be careful that I don't think she's a villainess in this. I think that RFK is the villain in this. Okay. And so I just want.
Is it fair to say a lot of them have some culpability, but RFK is like the most powerful person and probably deserves the most scrutiny?
Well, Olivia Nuzzi isn't controlling my health.
Right.
He's not in control of my health, my physical health, and my family's health. So
Right.
It doesn't matter really what her personal life is. I just hope.
Great point.
Okay.
I think all three of these people have made the crawl out of Shawshank that you may remember in that film and need to shower for the rest of their lives, because I don't think any one of them should escape scrutiny here. They're all despicable figures for their roles in this and how they chose to profit from their roles.
How's Ryan Lizza despicable for having been screwed
He's
up?
charged a subscription to write about his wife having an affair with the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Mhm.
He basically made this his journalistic integrity.
Well, he also he was sitting on a lot of like powder keg information.
Potentially about the assassination attempt of the President of the United States.
Right. Like, he basically suggested that the artist that Olivia Nuzzi hired to sort of illustrate Trump was mortified by what she overheard about Trump talking with Susie Wiles about the Butler assassination attempt. And that was the end of that part 3 tease that suggested like, oh my God, was it staged? I mean, it was like really shameless, like cliffhanger. And then it was like, oh, you probably want to hear this. Like, they weren't really clear what it was. Maybe it wasn't the bullet. Maybe it was a shard of glass. Like, not that that really matters, but it was like, dude, like you just made it sound like that it was a much bigger deal. And we all fell prey to it. Like, he knows what he's doing. And he's made like, I think like 700,000 subscribers have come on Substack. They're each paying like $6, $7. And, not all of them paid, but like he's made a ton of money off this. And I find it really despicable. But I will grant you that he's
Profitable.
not the same level as RFK Jr., Allison. You've made your point clear and I agree with you.
Okay. And I take both of your points that's a lot of money to be, dining out on for this story, but he is allowed to tell his story. He is allowed to own his story as a memoir writer. I can tell you that there is something satisfying about owning your own story, not just, not just having to read it, in his case, through other people's lens. Anyway, I think that it is about their journalistic standards, but it's mostly about all of our health. And I really, really hope that good, solid journalists, which still exist, are going to follow up on all of this with RFK.
Okay, so at the end of the day, let's all give just like, I always like at the end of the day, I like to say, what did we learn? Kind of like remember when a Doogie Howser episode used to end? Oh, he'd sit down there at his computer, and there'd be like wonderful lesson, Wonder Years. You guys remember these shows, how they ended with lessons? I love that. Can we go
He's a little younger than we are, and he watched those shows were ones I kind of ignored. But go on, Dave.
Okay, well, you know what I mean. You do know what I mean. And so
Fat Albert did that.
So I'm trying to figure out, like,
go on.
Is it journalism? Is it America's health? Is it the Substack culture? Like, what to me is the biggest takeaway here? I would love to say this impacts America's health, but I don't believe it does. If you are an anti-vaxxer, you don't give a damn. In preparation for this podcast, called two very well-respected doctors / Trump supporters, highly educated people, very successful doctors, still are very much supporters of RFK because they are suspicious of vaccines, and the rest of the stuff couldn't penetrate their cortex. It was just inside the beltway noise that they don't give a damn about, and they couldn't even hear me out. So I don't think this impacts our nation's health. To me, it's just one more bullet in the corpse of journalism. Allison?
I think that having somebody with no conscience, as he's described in this, running all of our health should matter. And I hope that Americans will take that seriously. I think that that's the opposite of the Hippocratic Oath. I think that for somebody making decisions about our kids' health, it would be best not to have an alleged sadist leader. So I hope that people will give RFK Jr. a serious look about how he's conducting himself.
I hope you're right. Colby?
I want to say 2 takeaways. First, Olivia Nuzzi and Ryan Lizza were the elite journalist profile writers, had great power, and turns out they broke a lot of journalistic ethics and are narcissists and looking to promote their own sort of narrative and image. And I think that sort of damages journalism to some degree. But I think that's smaller because that's just my focus because I'm a media guy. The bigger one is, I think, of course, how the hell is RFK Jr. getting a pass from all of this? And it's not just this, although this is all pretty gross and puts in stark relief. And I gather that from what I've read of the reviews, he kind of gets a pass in this book as well, because maybe Olivia Nuzzi is still smitten by him. But this guy is in charge of the HHS, is bereft of any sort of moral rectitude or noblesse oblige. And yeah, the attention should go to him. I don't think anything will happen to him because I think Trump will protect him because he refuses to ever admit a mistake. But journalism needs to sort of save their ass by going after RFK and, holding his feet to the fire for his role in this whole mess.
Okay, I lied. I have one last question. Rank them. Most currently dangerous cabinet officials. Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth, RFK Jr. Allison, I'll let you lead off.
Thank you, Dave. Pete Hegseth, obviously, anybody who's near our...
As one?
He's the most dangerous, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. He has his fingers on the buttons of our nuclear arsenal, and he's at the moment, RFK isn't killing anyone, I don't think. Anyway, yeah, Pete Hegseth. And then I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess Kristi Noem, because of what's going on with immigration and how brutal that's being conducted. And then I guess RFK, but I don't really know exactly what he's doing other than issuing new kind of thought papers on the website and changing the CDC website. So I don't exactly know how he's affecting our health yet.
I think Hegseth is the most dangerous. Noem is second, but RFK could shoot to the top of this chart based on what he enacts on these thought papers. So like he's playing with a stick of dynamite that may be diffused, but it could blow up in ways that will lead to pandemics and breaks out of measles and all this stuff that we know can happen and may very well happen if he's not held in check.
Well, then I guess I'm going to shock you both, because for the time being, though I find Hegseth deeply concerning, I'm less concerned about boat strikes off the coast of Venezuela killing drug dealers, even a double tap strike, which is indeed a war crime. I'm actually going to say RFK here. Number one, because what I have seen, and I just mentioned these two well-respected doctors with a total disrespect for their own profession and for science, that actually scares me more, because that is a virus that will infect this country from the inside out. And I actually think more long-term damage could be caused by that, because I don't think Pete's going to get us into some world war, maybe some minor incursions in Venezuela, but that would be over before it even began. So I guess you must be surprised that I actually flipped this on its face and took RFK.
It's a Sophie's choice. There are so many to choose from.
Somehow your analysis, Dave, is strangely comforting. So thank you.
I love how that ended, man. I didn't know how it was going to end, but it was kind of a cliffhanger.
That's good.
Thanks for being with us, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. Colby Hall, founding editor of Media. Please like and subscribe to Sanity. We appreciate you being with us.